Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Gajananam Bhudakanadisevidham Kavitta Jambho Valasara Vakshitham Umasutham Soka Vinashakaranam Namami Vigneshwara Pada Pankajam. Jnananandamayam devam nirmalar spatikhatrudhim adharam sarva vidyanam ayagrivam upasmahe yasyat varada vakradhyaya parishatya parashatham Vignam nignam ti satatam Vishvashremam tamashraye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarvalokanam Visaje Bhavaroginaha Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurthaye Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Sai Ishwararpanamastu. Ramanuja Daya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimat Venkatanathayam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Lakshmi Nada Samarambha Nada Yamunam Madhyamam Asmadacharya Varyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Mapadam Apahaktaram Datharam Sarvasampadam Lokabhiramam Shri Ramam Bhuyo Bhuyo Namamyaham. Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sithayam Pataye Namaha. Om Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Ramanama Varanane Ramanama Varanane Nama Ithi. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramarpanamastu. Suswagatam, Namo Namaha, and welcome to the next stage of the journey into what is known as the great epic Ramayana. So this is week 6, but obviously because we have an introduction, we are looking at the 5th kanda, which is Sundara Kanda. So I hope you've been following me with an intention not of confirming different versions of the story, listening to the story, yes, but more importantly, what each kanda represents in terms of your own life. In your own lives, there are several kandas taking place, right? There are 4 ashramas when you were young, brahmacharya. Then when you get married, grahastham, we have children. Then, of course, when you get grandchildren, vanapadishtam, and then your final stages of life, sannyasam. So in your own lives, there are kandams, there are parts, there are chapters. So having been exposed, having got the essence of the kandas in the Ramayana, how have you usurped that? How have you usurped that into your own lives, right? And in terms of spiritual learning, in terms of your own personal development, your own personal transformation, your own personal evolution, whether it's in the mind, in the words, or in the actions of yourselves, how much effect has these sessions or have these sessions affected on yourselves, right? So that's the more important vision that you should be having throughout. So we come to Sundara Kanda, as I said, the 5th kanda. right? It's called Sundara Kanda, which means Sundara means beauty, right? Beauty. So it's book of beauty. And in Valmiki's, original transcripts, which are later compartmentalized, and of course there are different versions that have emulated since then. 68 chapters, over 3,000 verses dedicated to this Sundara Kanda. So the first thing that Valmiki says in writing this, Valmiki confesses that this is verily his favorite part of the Ramayana. And of course, he's not only his favorite, but he also adds the most beautiful amongst all the kandas, and hence he's called it Sundara Kanda. Now, in my research, I always wondered, why has he called this Sundara Kanda, right? Because Balakandam, of course, book of youth. Understandably, there is a real direct connection there. Then, of course, Ayodhya Kandam, 100% nexus is there. Then, of course, Aranya Kandam, connection is there, relativity is there. Kishkinda, last week we looked at Kishkinda, where Rama, Lakshmana meet, go into the monkey kingdom, and the first time they meet Hanuman. But why, what is so beautiful about this? So this is my own questions, right? So I began to research, slightly digressing away. Then I found out information from other transcripts that, is connected, that Sundara was actually Anjana's favorite name for Hanuman. So Anjana is Anjani Putra, right? So she is the mother of Hanuman. And she always refers to him as Sundara, Sundara, Sundara. So Valmiki, in writing this, said that is the best reference he can give to this chapter, Sundara Kanda. I mean, that analogy itself is so beautiful. So I can imagine, him really enjoying writing this. And it also gives me, immense pleasure to talk about Sundara Kanda because, like it was to Valmiki and to many others around the world, Sundara Kanda is one of my favorite parts of the Ramayana as well. No less effective, but one of the favorite parts. You see, why? Because in all the kandas, right, from Bala Kanda to Ayodhya Kanda to Aranya Kanda, Kishkinda Kanda, except Sundara Kanda, Ayodhya Kanda, and of course Uttara Kanda, all Rama was the hero. All these kandas, Rama was the hero. Sundara Kanda is the only kanda, only chapter, the only book where Rama is not the hero. Hanuman is given the preeminence, eminence, and post-eminence, right? He is given the primary position, first amongst everything else, what we call in Latin, primus inter pares, right? First amongst. So the work, actually this chapter depicts the adventures of Hanuman in terms of his selflessness, right? Selflessness, in terms of his strength and in terms of his knowledge, right? And of course, if you read the Hanuman Chalisa, it says, Bhala, Buddhi and Vidya. Bhala, Buddhi, Vidya, Dehu Mohi, Hara Kalesh Vikas. So Bhala means strength, Buddhi means intelligence, and of course Vidya means knowledge. So this one actually talks about Hanuman's adventures in terms of its strength, selflessness, knowledge, and obviously the very basic devotion to Rama. And these are qualities that are emphasized throughout this book, throughout the 68 chapters and throughout the 3,000 verses. Right. So as I said, Hanuman was very fondly and very, very commonly called as Sundara by his mother Anjani, right? And Valmiki reminds everybody about this. Okay, so it's about, basically in one sentence, it is about Hanuman's journey to Lanka and how he comes back. So again, as I said, I was questioning, surely he couldn't have called it Sundara Kandam just because, his mother used to call him Sundara. So what are the other reasons why it is called Sundara Kandam, or the Book of Beauty? And then, of course, I continue to go deeper, delve deeper into this. And I must tell you, right, the more you go in, the more it sucks you. And unless you are a deep diver, you know, there is a risk of being lost in the ocean, right? And it's difficult to come out. So prep yourself well if you're going to deep into this research, right? Because it can impact you in different ways. So why is this book or kanda called Sundara Kanda? First thing, you know, there is no other country in the world that has got the word Sri or the title Sri in front of it, except Lanka. So it's called Sri Lanka, and the word Sri actually came from the time of Ramayana. Why? Right? Because beautiful amongst the most beautiful is Lanka, and therefore it was given the title of Sri. By whom? By our dear friend Hanuman. Because the moment he first had sight of this island, all he said was, Kimtaha Shrita itihi Lankaha. Kimtaha Shrita itihi Lankaha. What splendor of beauty is this island filled with? So whenever he then referred to this island, he always used Srihi Lankaha. And of course, modern, what you call terms of reference, Sri Lanka, right? So beauty amongst the most beautiful, beautiful amongst the most beautiful is the island of Lanka. Hence the word Sri is given by Hanuman, therefore became Sri Lanka. Beautiful amongst the most beautiful is the story of Ramayana. So he said Sundara Kanda. Beautiful amongst the most beautiful is Mother Sita. Beautiful amongst the most beautiful in terms of bhakti or devotion is the exploits of Hanuman. So in all this beauty, how else can I refer to this chapter but to call it Sundara Kanda? And that was Valmiki's rationalization, right? So it's all about this Vanara. Vanara. So I think it's only proper that we explore a little bit into this monkey called Hanuman, which I will do shortly, right? But firstly, let me come to the significance of this Sundara Kanda, right? Sundara Kanda, significance. Okay. Firstly, Hanuman's realization of his true powers simply by going within and reciting Ram, Ram. You know, when you say Ram, you must close your mouth and you must feel the vibration created by the teeth when you say Because in Ram, R-A-U-M, Ram. So you take away the R, what is left is Om, right? And of course, Om is very powerful because if you look at the Narayana Upanishad, it says Akara, Ukara, Makara, Itihi, Om, Omkara, right? So if you add the word Ra, it adds what we call the level, one of the 7 levels of the Gayatri Mantra, Agni level. So it adds the R, R. So he became his true self purely by this Namasmarana. So it's putting forth the importance or significance of Namasmarana, right? And then of course his journey, once he leaps, right? Until the time he reaches, right? First, he crosses Mount Mainika, and that represents desire. I'll explain this in a bit more detail, right? I'm giving you the significance first. Then, of course, once he beats Mount Mainika, he's going, the Asura, Surasa comes. This is test of perseverance, okay? Then once he beats Asura Simha, Surasa, then he meets Simhika. Simhika is strength. And then finally he lands in Lanka, and there's the guardian there, guardian deity of Lanka called Lankini, also an Asura. She is the Dwarabala for Lanka, now Sri Lanka, right? Now she stops him. Okay, so the point here is every journey will have some form of tests. The test may be testing your power over desire, your control over desires or mind over matter. It may test your perseverance, it may test your strength, and it may give you the final test of eligibility before you are allowed entrance. So that's how you should read the different tests endured by Hanuman, right? Then, of course, he lands there, he goes into the gates, he goes into this beautiful, beautiful island, and he, you know, he sees everything around. He meets Mother Sita, the conversation. So Sundara Kanda is important for that. Then, of course, he has some fun, right? He destroys the forest, you know, it's the fire, Lanka Dahanam, right? He's in Ashokavanam. You know, he fights and he defeats all the people, and then he pretends to lose to Indrajit, who's the son of Ravana, right? Indrajit, of course, is quite powerful, right? So he pretends to lose to Indrajit, gets caught, is bound, and is presented before Ravana. And Ravana says, kill the insolent monkey. And of course, then we have something called Vibhishana Dharma. Vibhishana is, of course, Ravana's brother. Ravana, Kumbhakarna, and Vibhishana, the three brothers, represents the three gunas. Rajasic, Ravana, Satvik, Vibhishana, and of course, Tamasic is Kumbhakarna, right? I said this in the first week when I did the introduction. Then, of course, Vibhishana Dharma, where Vibhishana says, you cannot kill a messenger, it is adharmic, right? So Ravana says, okay, I won't kill him, I'll set his tail on fire. There's no law against that, right? So Lanka Dahanam, what Ravana sets in motion, Hanuman completes by setting the entire island on fire, right? Then, of course, he flies back, returns victorious to Kishkinda, and informs Rama of Sita's whereabouts, of his conversations. And the gift that Rama gives him is Rama blesses Hanuman with just one super blessing. He says, Sarvakala Shiranjeevi Baba. Sarvakala Shiranjeevi Baba means there is no death for you. You are immortal through all the ages, right? And that is why they say Hanuman until today is still alive, right? His energy is moving, right? If you're lucky enough, you will meet him at some point in your life journey, if he wills it. If he wills it, right? Anyway, so coming back to the story. So the task, the last I left you at Kishkinda, was the task of going and finding Mother Sita after Sampati, you know, Jatayu's brother tells them where he is, over these ocean into that island. I see a lady pining away for someone she's lost. So they knew it had to be Sita. So the task of going to the island to find Sita was given to Hanuman. And of course, Hanuman says, look, I'm a monkey, I can't jump, right? And you remember last week I told you, Jambavan tells Hanuman to meditate for 3 days to realize his true self. And of course, Hanuman meditates, goes within, and comes out supreme. What's the lesson for you and me? No point us talking here, Hanuman meditated for 3 days. What is the lesson for you and me today in 2021, right? Today, March 21st, 2021. What can we extract? What essence can we squeeze out of this? Well, the essence is very simple. Go within yourself to realize your true powers. Go within yourself. If a monkey can do it, then man is endowed with 6 senses. Of course he can do it, right? Of course. Of course he can do it. In the entire Hindu pantheon, right? Whether you take the Charitras or you take the Vedic scriptures or you take the Upanishads or you take all the whatever almanacs that is there, only 2 people have given what we call Vishwarupam. Right? One was Krishna, and I spoke about this when I did Bhagavad Gita with you last year. The other is Hanuman. Vishwarupam. That is the pinnacle of devotion. You cannot go beyond that, right? Where your devotion is vibrating at such high level that God himself will give you the power to have Vishwarupam. Because you've hit that, you've hit that target. So Hanuman now goes atop Mount Mahendra, right? Mount Mahendra, to begin his leap, because he needed a solid foundation from which he has to leap. So he couldn't just leap from the ground or from the sand or from a tree. He needed a solid foundation that will catapult him with such force as was required, as was necessary. Lesson: when you want to springboard into success, make sure the foundation is solid. No one just did not choose spot X, marked it X, and jumped from there. No, he chose his spot. And he said, this, because of a solid foundation, it will catapult me to where I need to go. So in life, foundation. right? So he leaps. But before he leaps, what does he do? He first prays to his Deha Mata and Deha Pita, right? Anjani Mata and Keshari, father and mother, biological father and mother. Then he now knows Vayu Putra, I am Vayu Putra, Pavana Kumara, right? He prays to his celestial father, Vayu Deva. And of course, Vayu Deva is one of the Panchabhutas. And all the Panchabhutas became guardians of Hanuman because of Vayu. Then he prayed to the Panchabhutas, right? And then, of course, before he started, he already got Rama's blessings, right? Then once he prays to his father, and I'm talking about Vayu and the Panchabhutas, he grows and grows and grows. Enormous size. And he leaps with a single leap, he crosses, right? The lesson here is, why did Hanuman do all that? It's always important to get the blessings of your parents, your elders, your teachers before starting anything good, right? Blessings. So you always go and get their blessings. Hanuman shows that. So if you worship Hanuman, you should give such credibility or credence to your parents. Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Aditya Devo Bhava, right? Then you will get whatever answer you're supposed to get, you will get. Now, let's look at the challenges. Now he leaps, okay? First, Samutra Raja, the king of the ocean, wakes up, come out. Hanuman is in flight, remember, he's flying. Samutra Raja comes and he says, "Oh Vayuputra, rest a while before you continue. Come with me." Because he's got powers over the Panchabhutas, water will not affect him, air will not affect him, space will not affect him, earth will not affect him, like that. He says, "Come to me, come with me to my palace, and I will treat you with all the opulence that you deserve." Now, this is actually the test of desire, right? Samutra Raja comes and tells Mount Mainika to rise before him so that Hanuman can rest. If Hanuman does not want to come down to the ocean or down below to the ocean to Samutra Raja's palace. This is testing your desire, right? Throwing things in front of you to see whether your sense of focus, your sense of determination, your sense of direction is easily swayed or not. So in life, you'll get this sort of challenges, you'll get this sort of persuasions, you'll get this sort of influences, you'll get this sort of incitements, right? People incite you. People will, excite you. People will throw desires. And Hanuman said, "No, my journey is Lanka. Until I land, I am not going to rest, because that is what I want to accomplish, and that is the task I have undertaken. That is my sankalpa." At the moment he said that, Mount Mainika went down to its normal size, and Samutra Raja became. So Hanuman's first test is conquering the desire. Then he goes on. You see, when you're on a good path, when you're in a path of bhakti, they want to see whether you are completely focused and whether you can be swayed, See, like a coconut tree is so tall, right? But even the strongest of winds, the tree will sway, but it still stands. So that's what they want to do. So he was flying. Now the Devas up there, with Devendra, they wanted to test his willpower. So they told the mother of all the serpents, Surasa, Asuri, right? They said, assume the shape of a big Rakshasa and test Hanuman's sense of perseverance. Surasa wanted Hanuman to be her food. So she grew. And, he's flying. She grew in front of him. And of course, he stops to see what's this now. So Surasa says, "Look, I'm hungry and you look like good food to me. So if you quietly enter my mouth, there'll be no problems. Otherwise, I'll have to beat you and then eat you." Right? Hanuman says, "No problem," right? "But your mouth is a bit small. Can you make your mouth a bit bigger?" Right? As she made her mouth bigger, Hanuman grew bigger. She made it bigger, he grew bigger. She made it bigger, he grew bigger. And she made it so big that instantly he became small in size, went into the mouth, did one circle and came out. And he said, look, I went into your mouth and I'm out, right? So the Asura was, willing to take defeat. So she considered. And Surasa Asuri said, bless you with success in your mission. And then she disappeared. The test of perseverance, right? He didn't shy away. He used his intelligence, right? He made her mouth grow so big, he also grew. Because otherwise she won't open her mouth and she says, you're small size, why are you asking me to open my mouth bigger and bigger? So he grew, she grew, and then instantly he changed his size, small, he went in, came out like a fly, right? So he was victorious there. Lesson, use intelligence, not force. In life, some things you should use force, some things you use intelligence. So be discriminating like that. So he faced more obstacles along the way, but the third kind of objection came in the form of the Asuri, Simhika. Simhika was, most of you know this, right? She was the daughter of Hiranyakashipu. The fourth avatar that Vishnu took was Narasimha avatar, correct? And of course, that avatar was taken to grant, to give recognition to pure faith, and faith in the form of Prahalada. So this Asura, Simhika, was the sister of Prahalada. That means the daughter of Hiranyakashipu. She is also considered the mother. I mean, if you look at the grahas, if you research into the Navagrahas, Navagrahas, the 9 planets, she is also known to be the mother of Swarbhanu. Swarbhanu, because of his, ill behavior and adharmic behavior, he was beheaded by Vishnu and he became in two halves, resulting in the creation of Rahu and Kedu. One body of a snake, head of human, the other head of a snake, body of a human, Rahu and Kedu. So Swarbhanu, first initially Swarbhanu, after the decapitation, it became Rahu and Kedu, and they were made 2 nodes, Rahu and Kedu as planets, so that they don't disturb directly, but they can influence indirectly. So Simhika was the mother of Swarbhanu, who subsequently became Rahu and Kedu, right? Simhika got a boon from Brahma, tapas, right? She did tapas for so many years, and she was given a boon by Brahma. The boon is, Simhika had the boon that she can control anybody's shadow, shadow. Now, when someone can control your shadow, they can do things with it. Right? And truly, there are some what we call yantric and tantric powers. If you really research into this, you can see. So she got the boon and she controlled Devi Chaya. Chaya is mother of Lord Shani, Shanishwara, right? And of course, she's the wife of Lord Surya, right? Surya has got the bright side, right, called Sanghya, and the dark side, the shadow side, called Chaya. That's why if you look at the Surya Ashtakams or Surya Stotrams, it's Chaya Sanghya Samedha Sri Surya Narayana Swamine Namaha, right? So one who controls light and who is controlled by the shadow, like that. But 2 people she could never have control or persuade or influence over their shadow. One is Shani, right? Simhika could never control Shani. So Shani was beyond Simhika. The other person was Hanuman, right? Once in a feat between Simhika and Hanuman, Hanuman defeated her. Then Hanuman forgave her and said, look, I want you to go to a place where even you cannot see your own shadow. And if I ever see you again, then I give you my word that that will be your end. I will end your life. Now go. So Chaya went and hid, right? And of course, now the Devas have approached her and said, look, Hanuman is flying. We want you to stop him. And don't worry, we are there to protect you, right? If anything should happen, right? So anyway, Hanuman was flying and she tried to catch Hanuman's shadow because the sun was shining, and the shadow was on the face of the water, and Simhika was at the base. But of course, Hanuman with his jnana drishti, he could see. So he used his power and he dived into the mouth, into her mouth. He went straight in into the mouth of Simhika and came out through the stomach, thereby ending. Now that was the curse that was to be lifted in that manner. And then Simhika regained her celestial place and blessed Hanuman with success in his journey. So this is a test of strength. Remember, I told you the first Mount Mainika was test of desire. Second, Surasa Asura was the test of perseverance. Test Simhika Asura, test of strength. Okay. Then, of course, just before he reaches the island, another giant wakes up. She is called Lankini. Lankini is the Dwarabalaka of Lanka, the island. So she's the guardian deity, right? The entire city was protected by a very high wall, guarded fiercely by this Asuri called Lankini. If you look at Lankini's history, she was once guarding, you see, every temple you go, in front of every main sanctum, right? There will be two guards, like security guards, just outside the main entrance, right? Sanctum Sanctorium. Right? And if they have two or three, you will find two or three like that. So she was actually the guardian or the Dwarabalaka of Brahmaloka. She guarded the home of Brahma and Saraswati. And after some time, she's guarding the creator's home. So she became egoistic about her position. And she treated everybody else who came there with a bit of contempt. And then after some time, people started to complain. And then, of course, Brahma said, if you cannot behave where a position is given to you to guard the entrance of the Brahmaloka, then you should go and guard the city of the Asuras. You can't behave in Brahmaloka, then you go to the Asura Loka, right? So she was sent to this island of Rakshasas to stand guard there. Lankini realized her mistake, right? Normally, sometimes you just need a little bit of knock of reality for you to realize, oh, God, I've made a mistake or whatever. So Lankini begs for forgiveness to Brahma. And Brahma says, once I have given my vak, I cannot take it back. It is not reversible, right? However, I will say that the curse can be lifted. And for you, it will be lifted, given your powerful nature and powerful strength. If a monkey defeats you, of course, Lankini doesn't know, right, what's going to happen. But Brahma, in his, esteemed wisdom, knew what was going to happen. So if a monkey defeats you in combat, then, you are freed from the curse and you'll come back to Brahmaloka. Of course, Lankini is thinking, my God, how can a monkey defeat me, right? So anyway, so Lankini grew and Lankini stopped him and says, stop, who are you? Why are you coming into this island? What is the purpose of your visit? Now, of course, Hanuman here uses intelligence and discrimination, right? The lesson for you and me in the way in which Hanuman responds to Lankini is the exercise of discrimination. So Hanuman didn't want to say everything, why he's there, what he's going to do, what the purpose of his visit is, all of that. He just said he has come from the forest on the other side because he had heard so much of things about this beautiful island, right? Now Lankini says it doesn't matter, right? Because you are an intruder and it is my job to protect this city and I am going to attack you. Of course, Hanuman knew the true nature of Lankini, right? So he did not really hit her hard. He knew she was a woman. So he softly strikes her with just enough force to make her fall and bleed, hoping that she'll realize before he uses, extra force. It's what we lawyers call use such force as is reasonable under the circumstances, right? So all the lawyers out there, you'll understand what I'm saying. So Hanuman just exercised that much of force. She fell and she started to bleed and she realized, a monkey attacking me. This is no ordinary monkey. And she puts her hand together and says, you must be the one who's destined to free me from this curse. So I concede defeat in your hands. Because she knew instantly Brahma's prophecy has come true now. So she wasn't going to fight it. Now, sometimes when we accept and move on, our journey becomes easier. But if we keep wanting to fight, when we don't accept, acceptance is the first stage of winning, right? So anyway, Hanuman forgives her and says, what? back to your Brahmaloka. And she takes leave. And then Hanuman enters. He enters into this beautiful city, right? So before I continue with that, I have to talk to you about Hanuman's history, right? Right. And I'd like to begin with one of the most common prayers that is said in temples and in prayers with respect to Hanuman. Yeah. Harihi Om Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirthana Tatra Tatra Kritamastakhanjalim Vaspavari Paripurana Lochanam Marutim Namatha Rakshasantakam. Harihi Om Tat Sri Anjaneya Arpanamastu. Jai Shri Hanuman. Okay. Now, this sloka, whenever it is recited, it simply says, whenever the glories of Raghunatha, Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirtana, whenever and wherever the Kirtans of Rama is sung, Tatra Tatra Kritamastakhanjalim, there I will be present with my hands bowed and my head bowed in total devotion. Vaspavari Paripurna Lochana, with tears of devotion in my eyes, Marutim Namatha Rakshasantakam. I, the one who vanquished the Rakshasas, will be present. So it's a very powerful incantation. So let's talk about his birth, right? Before his birth. As a famous rishi, a powerful rishi called Angira Maharishi. Angira once went to visit Indra in Swargaloka. So he visits Indra, and then Indra says, oh, you've come at the right time. We are just going to witness the dance of the, what we call the Deva Vanita, Punjikshtala. Vanita is basically the heavenly damsel, right? That's what they call. So Punjikshtala is going to dance and entertain the Devas, okay? Of course, the more he's given the, respect, and he's given a seat in the court of Indra, and he sits there, and then Punjikshtala, the beautiful damsel, comes. Punjikshtala is seen to be in the same level as Radhi and Menaka and so on and so forth, right? Enchanters. The moment Punjikshtala starts dancing, Angira goes into a state of meditation, right? And Angira is so powerful that he doesn't have to start at the bottom. He starts from the heart chakra, straight up, right? So the moment he starts to go into meditation, Punjikshtala notices everybody is watching except this rishi, right? And then she becomes a bit arrogant. And, when she finishes, she goes and says, look, you did not even open your eyes to see me once. So can you tell me how the dance was? He says, I'm sorry. When I close my eyes to the entire world and open my eyes only to God within. Therefore, everything else becomes immaterial, where the material substance is only God that I see in front of me. That angered Punjikshtala. And of course, it hit and hurt her ego, right? So she says, a fickle rishi like you, I cannot expect to understand and appreciate the exquisite beauty of my dance. What would you know? And she insults him. Of course, when you insult a rishi, you're not going to take it standing up or sitting down or whatever the case may be, right? He says, you, because of your ego and your arrogance, you will be born as a monkey in Bhuloka. Vanaraha, Bhuloka. That's it, go. At that moment, Punjikshtala realizes, oh my God, what have I done? What have I've hurt this rishi. And she asks for forgiveness, begs for forgiveness. Indra, says, please forgive her. It was said in a rash. And the rishi says, once I have given a sharp, a curse, I cannot revoke it. However, I can lessen the burden by saying, as in that form of that monkey, you will give birth to an incarnation of Lord Shiva himself, a great devotee of Lord Rama, Lord Vishnu. Because it was Shiva's wish that he should serve Lord Vishnu in one of his incarnations where Vishnu is powerless. So the next incarnation, of course, was Rama. After Krishna was Rama, right? And Rama, as I said to you, born as a normal man without any inclination of what he is truly in, Vaikuntha, Lord Mahavishnu. So Rishi Angira blesses her and says, don't worry, you will give birth to a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, and who will be an incarnation of Lord Shiva, right? Of course, you've read many, many references where they say Hanuman is but an incarnation of Lord Shiva. So Punjiksala is born as Anjani to Kunjar Raja, King Kunjar, king of the monkeys, pre-Vali and pre-Sugriva, right? King of the monkeys, and then she marries Kesari. Kesari is the son of Brahaspati, one of the Navagrahas. And of course, Kesari was ruling Mount Sumeru. So basically, Hanuman's birth is not by coincidence, right? It is premeditated, right? Premeditated, and Hanuman was born as a result of five factors having taken place. Firstly, Angira's curse and his subsequent blessing. Now, lesson for you and me is curse and blessing, pain and pleasure, joy and sadness, happiness, sadness. Life has both, right? Anjani's devotion and prayers to Lord Shiva. She was a big devotee of Lord Shiva. Everything was Lord Shiva. Shankara, Shankara, Shankara. Right? This is bhakti. This represents bhakti to us. Bhakti always pays off, right? And of course, Swami has said, in this age of Kali, the best way is Bhakti Yoga, right? And of course, Shiva's blessings. He appears in Anjani's dream and blesses her. And of course, she is a great devotee, right? So he says, don't worry, I myself will be born, right? So, and of course, Vayudeva's blessings. Vayu is, of course, the celestial father of Hanuman, right? And I'll tell you how. Now, in the first, in Balakanda, or in the introduction, I said to you, two yajnas were done by Dasharatha, right? One is this Dasha Ashwamedha Yajna, and the other one was Putra Kameshti Yajna. And after that, of course, from the Havan after the Purnahuti, what we call the Payasa came, and then Dasharatha gave, half, and then half of that half, and then half of what there, and then there's a little bit remaining, right? He said, okay, whoever comes next, I will give. And Sumitra was coming. So as he was taking, I didn't say this story in the introduction because I was saving it for Sundara Kanda, right? Because it relates to Hanuman. As he was giving, pouring the last remaining part to Sumitra, right? A bird. Now, in some books, it says an eagle. In some books, it says a crow. But you don't have to worry about which type of bird. Just know that a bird came and grabbed some of it in its beak and was flying away. And Vayu Bhagavan saw this and he thought, this, Payasa is so powerful, right? It's going to give birth to Rama, Lakshmana, Shatrugna, and Bharata, right? And it cannot be wasted on anything else. So he blows very hard and makes this bird open the mouth, right? So that's why I'm saying it's irrespective of whether the bird is an eagle or crow or whatever the make, right? Make and model is not important. Opens the mouth and the thing drops out. So Vayu takes this with his, of course, with his wind power, right? Wind power, right? Wind power, he takes it and he could see Anjana praying in front of a Shivalinga and she is asking for his grace. And Vayu Bhagavan just drops the Amrit or the Payasa on her hands and says, drink this. And she drinks it. So it is, a kind of immaculate conception, if you like. Of course, then Shiva appears in a dream and says, I will be. So the fruit of the Putra Kameshti Yajna also was part and parcel of Hanuman's history leading to his birth, right? So, of course, with Vishnu, with the three Murtis, right? Brahma as a creator, he just does his job, right? But Vishnu and Shiva have a very, very close relationship and they always help each other because Brahma just gives the boon. It is either Vishnu that saves or Shiva that saves. So they always help each other, Hari and Haran, right? Shiva and Vishnu. So Shiva, you put like this, Vishnu, you put like that. Same thing, right? Baba, I said to you, if you are looking at Nirguna Brahma, there is no form. But because it is so difficult to understand energy without any form, they have given you Satguna Brahma, gods with form, right? So the antics of Hanuman as a child. So Hanuman is born, and of course, as a child, he was very, very mischievous, very, very naughty. One day he was playing, he was climbing the trees, and he saw the sun. At the moment he saw the sun, he thought it was a very, very ripe mango. he says to the mother, I want mango. Mother says, okay, go and get it. Mother thought, he wants mango from inside the house or from the tree. So she says, go and get it. So he flew. He flew. And this is where I want you to look at the science. In Hanuman Chalisa, I think it is verse number 18, where it says, Yuga Sahasra Yojana Parvanu Lilyo Tahi Madhura Phalujanu. Yuga Sahasra Yojana Parvanu, right? Now, what does this mean? Now, of course, Hanuman Chalisa was written by Tulsidas in 15 something, right? Long before NASA. I think Cassini was the first person. If you look at NASA, NASA.com, NASA.gov. US like that, you can go and find the exact date or the first recorded date of when NASA actually measured the distance between Earth and the Sun. And this was written in 1543 or something like that, right? I mean, you can do your research, but it's definitely in 15 something, right? 16th century. And of course, the first ever, what is accepted as accurate calculation of scientists through NASA was in 16 something. So in the 17th century. So Hanuman Chalisa was written by Tulsidas through divine, drishti in the 16th century, but NASA only calculated in 17th century. Yuga Sahasra Yojana. I'm just going to take these three words. Yuga, in human years is 12,000 years. Brahma is one day, right? Anyway, 12,000. Sahasra is 1,000. 1 yojana is 8 miles. So 12,000, 1,000 and 8 miles. Now remember this, right? So Yuga times Sahasra times Yojana. So Yuga is 12,000, Sahasra is 1,000, Yojana is 8 miles. So 12,000 times 1,000 times 8 miles will give you 96 million miles. When Tulsidas wrote it in 15 something, but of course we know when Ramayana happened, long before that. And Tulsidas, through the divine drishti, is saying, Yuga Sahasra Yojana Parvanu, you have traveled 96 million miles to the sun. Okay, 96 million miles, right? Now, NASA says 93 million. I mean, how accurate is that? When you're talking in millions, If 1 mile equals 1.6 kilometers, then 96 million miles equals roughly about 153 million. NASA says kilometers wise, it's 150 million kilometers. I mean, that is superbly scientifically accurate, if you ask me, right? This was in a time when there was nothing to measure the distance. And then in the 15th or 16th century, Tulsidas, through divine, sight, right? He can see. This information came to him. And he writes in Hanuman Chalisa, Yuga Sahasra Yojana Parvanu, Lilyo Tahi Madhura Phalujanu. NASA, now in the 17th century, and since then, as the technology advanced, they get more up-to-date, information in terms of, equipment and all of that. Still, they're saying 150 million miles. And we have already decided that. In Hanuman. Hanuman flew as a baby, right? As a little boy, he flew because he thought it was a ripe mango. So he tried to grab. I mean, his power was such that he could grab the sun, right? Now, the moment, of course, all the devas are watching him flying and they're saying, look, that little monkey is going to eat the sun. So Indra tried to stop him. Of course, he fought Indra. So Indra threw his Vajrayadam, Vajrayadam, the lightning kind of thing. So he throws it at Hanuman and it hits Hanuman in the face and breaks his jaw. Since then, he was called Hanuman. Hanuman means one with a disfigured jaw. One with a disfigured jaw. So why you became so angry? Vayuputra is my son. How dare you assault him? How dare you batter him? So he stops blowing. Vayu completely stops. Now, what will happen if there is no air in earth? everything completely stops, right? So all the gods go and say, okay, we are sorry, we apologize. They try and pacify Vayu. You said, no, you hurt my son, you broke his jaw, right? They say, okay, we'll make him good and make him more powerful. He says, no. Then Varuna came and he grants Hanuman complete power over water. Varuna, of course, the god of water, Varunamurti. Then all the grahas come. Yama comes and he says, you are Chiranjeevi, you are immortal, I give you power over death. Brahma comes and says, indivisible power, you can change at will what size you want. Big, small, large, little. Shiva then comes and says, I give you knowledge of all scriptures and the power of all things and the power over your tongue. That means that's why he speaks so beautifully. He has got complete control of speech. Vak Devi is sitting on his tongue. Shiva has given him that. Then Surya comes and says, Surya is actually Hanuman's guru for many, many years. Then Hanuman studied under Surya. So Surya is actually Hanuman's guru. Surya says, you will have the ability to harness stages at will. At will you will harness stages. Don't you? So every god came and gave him this power and that power, and that pacified Vayu. And he says, okay, right, blow again, right? So that is how Hanuman became so powerful, so formidable, so invincible. And of course, he's a little monkey at the end of the day, right? So he starts to mess about. He becomes a mischievous little fellow. And he starts disturbing, playfully, right? With no malicious intent. Playfully, he starts disturbing all the rishis who are doing tapas and all of that. And then he messed with the wrong rishi, right? Bhrigu. Bhrigu is a very powerful rishi, known for his anger, right? And he could see, Hanuman was so powerful. He says, you, just like Parasurama cursed Karna, at a time when you need it most, you will forget all the lessons that I've taught you, especially the mantra for Brahmastra, you'll forget. Like that, Bhrigu said to Hanuman, you will forget all your powers and boons and you will just be a mere monkey until an enlightened soul in the form of a bear. Now, when you hear these things, you think, oh, what are the likelihoods of these things happening, right? No chance. I mean, a bear, an enlightened soul in the form of a bear coming to remind a monkey of who he really is. What are the odds of that happening? So people will think, that's it, I've got no hope. The same curse that was given to Ahalya, same curse that was given to Sabari, same curse that was given to all the Rakshasas. You will think that that is the end of the road. There is no way out of this. But there is definitely a way out of this. So you remember in Kishkinda Kandam, I told you Jambavan, right? The bear, the old wise bear, enlightened soul, friend of Sampati, like that. He told Hanuman, you are actually so and so and so and so and so and so. Meditate for 3 days and everything will come back. So Jambavan meditated, Hanuman meditated as per Jambavan's advice. And of course, the rest, I told you, right? Now, next week when I do Yuddha Kandam, I will tell you why Hanuman is always seen in red or orange color and why there is a bell on Hanuman's tail, right? I don't know if you've ever wondered or if you've researched into the significance of the bell on Hanuman's tail. And why he's always painted in orange or red, Next week, Yuddha Kandam. This is a sneak preview into that. So coming back to the story, right? He leaps over the ocean, mind over matter. That is the lesson for us. Hanuman's flying is power of mind control. How high you can fly sitting on the ground, that is mind control, right? Water is desire. Right? That is why mind control, water. If you remember for Shivaratri, when I spoke about Chandrasekhara, the mind is represented by the crescent on Shiva's head and Ganga Jal coming from his head downwards, Jathadhara, the Ganga Jal coming represents control of mind through the water represents that, right? So that is why when you keep looking at water, it can affect your sanity of the mind. So anyway, when you are flying high, in spirituality, you should not be affected by the base moha vasanas or desires. And Hanuman's flight over water shows two things, mind control and power of mind over matter or desire, right? So he's landed, he's got rid of Lankini, right? He says, Kimtaha Sritaha iti Lanka. My God, what a beauty. So from then it became Sri Lanka. And like I said, right, no other country has got this prefix of Shri. That is the extent of beauty of this island that Ravana has built, right? So it was night time by the time he went in, but he could see, how beautifully the palace was, how, wonderfully decorated in such grand opulence, beautiful flowers, beautiful garden. And of course, as he entered, he became a small, like a size of a fly, monkey. He's flying, he's seeing everything. Lots of guards, most of them are intoxicated, drugged, asleep, or gorgeous women around in the palace. He then enters Ravana's room. It seems to be, an ornamental center, shining in brilliance with precious stones, gold and all that kind of thing. It's a very, very, very rich, rich island, right? It's like a shining pearl, like that. So he was amazed at the beauty, at the prosperity, at the brilliance, and at all the people there, Then he looked at one lady, a beautiful lady, and he thought, this is probably Sita. But actually it was Mandodari. Mandodari was Ravana's wife. Now, she was a good woman, right? Anyway, as he went closer, he said, this lady is sleeping in, luxury. Surely, Sita could not be enjoying such luxury when she is separated from my master. She's sleeping in such beauty. He said, no, this cannot be her. And his own intelligence told him, said, no, this is not the place. Go outside, look for it. Look for her. So surely Mother Sita cannot be inside. She has to be kept somewhere on the outside. Now he's thinking, I have to find her. I have to find her. I'm already here, right? Then he saw the Ashokavana. Ashokavana is the beautiful garden, right? So he says, let me go there and search. It was a beautiful garden, and it was the favorite place of Ravana because that's where he comes and he spends his time, in the beautiful, beautiful gardens amidst the trees, the flowers, the fruits, the birds, the all delicate animals. Every breed was sheltered there. And, and Rama had once told Hanuman, on their journeys that Sita is very fond of trees and all of that. So Hanuman remembered that. He said, oh, maybe I'll find her here because the place is so nice, so serene, and there's no movement here. So as he flew, he saw a very, frail looking woman, from the moonlight, he could see she's sitting by the little lake. She was draped in a crumpled piece of silk, Valmiki even says it was yellow and goldish in color, which can be seen from the moonlight. I mean, such extreme, accurate description is given by Valmiki. She's not wearing any jewelry. She looks very pale, very sad, very scared. But there were some Rakshasis around her. Some Asuras were guarding her. And obviously she was lonely. She was helpless. She couldn't do much except stand there or sit there and just be in the thought of Rama, right? And he said, this, and only this can be Sita, no one else, right? So he decided to go a little closer and approach her. But as he went closer, he could hear. Remember, he's only tiny, right? Because lots of Rakshasas there, they can't see, So he flew and he sat on the tree. And suddenly there was a huge commotion, powerful noise, big thing happening. Then he could see that Ravana was coming to where Sita was sat with all his guards and everybody. He saw Ravana for the first time. He said, wow, ferocious looking, but magnificent, completely, wow, what class, what caliber of this man. But he could see that the face was drenched in greed, in lust, a pretty demonic quality can be seen very clearly reflected on Ravana's face. So he just kept quiet. And then, of course, Ravana is there reminding Sita that, look, I've given you enough time. I'm going to give you 30 more days. In 30 days, whether you say yes or no, I am going to make you my wife. So you better say yes to me and come willingly. Otherwise, there will be problems. And then Sita is already distressed. She sees him and he says, what kind of a king are you when you act so adharmically, right? You are already a married man. I am already a married woman. How can you ask me to marry you again? I will not. My Lord Rama is ever merciful. It's not too late. You take me back and you ask for forgiveness and he will forgive you. I'll make sure he forgives you. And Ravana just laughs at her and says, do you think I've done all this just so that I can take you back and seek forgiveness from Rama, a mere human boy, right? Then he leaves. He says, you have 30 days. Then Trijata, the head Asura, the head Rakshasi comes and she tells Sita, look, don't fight Ravana. No one in this world, he's got such a boon that no one can actually kill him, right? Nobody has ever tried. And even if anyone tries, they will not be able to overcome him. He's so powerful. Why don't you just say yes and you just marry him and you live a wonderful life, He will forgive Rama and send them blah, 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 right? And Sita just keeps quiet and she says to Trijata, I want to rest, please, can you go? So Hanuman is just waiting for everybody to go, right? So when everyone leaves and she's alone, Hanuman says, now I can go and talk to her. And then he thinks, if she sees me, a monkey, I don't look any much more different than all these Rakshasas. She's definitely going to scream, and she screams, that's going to be a problem. So he stopped to think for a while. You see, the lesson for us here is, do not jump into action straight away. Make sure you have that pause, that little pausation where you exercise some thought, some discrimination, is the intelligence, right? Make sure you put some wisdom in your intelligence so that the action becomes fruitful. So Hanuman thinks, what is the best way for me to start conversing with her? And then he thinks, right, let me tell her about this Ram Katha. So he tells the story of Rama from the time, of birth, because he's heard it, right? And in Rama's conversations, Rama's mentioned many times to him. So he says, what happened in the Balakanda, what happened in the Ayodhya Kanda, what happened in the Aranya Kanda, and then what happened in Kishkinda Kanda, and how he has come. Of course, Sita can hear. And he's saying it in such beautiful language, right? And she instantly recognizes this speech is not like what I've been exposed to for as long as I've been kept in captivity here. And it's almost about 10 months already she's in captivity, right? So that's why he's giving her one more month before the year ends. So when she hears and she's looking, where is this sound coming from? Then he comes down, and he bows down. He doesn't look at her face, She's overjoyed because somebody is talking about her, Rama, and then he, of course, remember Rama gave him a ring and says, give this to Sita, right? Without looking at her face, just looking at her feet, right? This is bhakti, right? Now, if God appears before you, what would you be looking at? Straight away, you'll go for the face. What is? I saw him holding this in his hand, that in his hand. You'll check whether they've got all that or not. Is that really Vishnu's face? Okay. Check photo, real, photo, real. Yes, Vishnu, correct. How many of you would just fall at the feet and hold the feet and not look any further? Right? So Hanuman just bowed down, didn't even touch her feet, bowed down to her feet and showed the ring like that. And of course, she sees the ring and she's overjoyed. She's crying tears of joy. And she says, oh my God, my Ram is finally coming. And then this is what the lesson here is, even in the height of problems, even in the depth of problems, dharmic character is necessary, right? Hanuman says, mother, and he refers to her as mother, right? Not any name, but mother. Say, okay, I will carry you and fly you across to my Lord. What does Sita say? No, that will not be dharmic. Dharma is for Rama to come and take me back. So please go and tell him, I give you my chudamani, take and go, right? So Hanuman talks to her, and then of course, he says, now that I've seen you, mother, I will go and tell master that I've seen you. She says, okay, go and, tell him I am waiting. I have been waiting. I will continue to wait until he comes and rescues me from this Rakshasa. So she says, no, you go, better go before they wake up or someone comes. So Hanuman has that conversation with her. This is one of the significance. When you have problems in life, someone from somewhere will come and they will give you that little comfort, that little consolation that you need, that little way out. Light at the end of the tunnel. The tunnel may be long, but you see some, sign of a light at the end. And that's what keeps you going, right? This is why they say reading Sundara Kanda is beneficial. So anyway, Hanuman thought before he flies back to Kishkinda, he'll have some fun in Lanka, right? So he takes Sitaji's blessings, and then he says, okay, I'm going to go now, mother. He leaves her, and then he goes. And he thinks, let me have some fun with these Rakshasas, okay? So how can I get their attention? Because they're all sleeping. So he says, okay, let me start a small fire in Ravana's favorite place, the garden, right? So he starts uprooting the trees. he sets it on fire, and slowly, people, they get up, and then they start. And then Ravana is informed. He sends his entire army. They are defeated. He sends his the minister's sons. They are killed, and then he sends his own son. One fellow is dead, and then he sends Indrajit, his favorite. And Indrajit goes, the most valiant son of Ravana, right? Meghananda is another fellow, right? Anyway, Hanuman realizes that the best way to face Ravana is to accept defeat in the hands of Indrajit, right? And of course, Indrajit, uses one of his powerful astras to diffuse the situation and disarm Hanuman temporarily. So Hanuman falls down as though he's been hit and he's unconscious. So they're caught by the army, catches him. They're caught by Indrajit, and is presented before Ravana in his court. So, and inside Hanuman is brought inside Ravana's main palace court, and he's spellbound by looking at the beauty and looking at the magnificence of the king that is Ravana, right? That's why I said to you, only Shaniswaran and Ravaneswaran have got the title Iswaran. That is the greatness or the grandeur of the persona. So he saw Ravana sitting in a throne, golden crown, made with gems, pearls. I mean, the beauty is exquisite, exotic, right? He was wearing ornaments made of gold, the softest white silk, sandalwood smell in the darbar, like that. Amazing. So Hanuman was standing with his mouth open. He said, wow, this is great. So the king comes, everybody is offered a seat except Hanuman, who's standing there with his arms tied and everything, right? And Ravana says, look, I don't have time to talk to a monkey, right? Minister, find out what was his aim to come here and why was he destroying, right? So when the minister spoke to Hanuman, Hanuman said, look, I didn't come here to talk to you. I want to talk to Ravana, and I'm going to talk to him, and I'm going to make sure that he looks up to me when I talk to him. And everybody laughed. He said, you're standing here. Ravana is up there on the throne, right? You are looking up at him. You don't even have a seat. And you're saying you're going to be sitting higher than him, and he's going to be looking up to you when you're talking to him. Hanuman says, watch. And he grew, his tail grew to such a height where he just rose slightly above Ravana's seat. And then he sat on his tail, which means he's slightly above Ravana. And he says, I have come here to address you. So you better listen to me. I am Lord Rama's messenger. My Lord, Rama, Lord as in master, right? Not as in Lord Deva like that. Lord Rama sent me to give you a message. Return Sita and seek forgiveness, and you will be allowed to live. Otherwise, death is certainly your fate. Oh, Ravana got angry. He becomes furious and he says, kill this insolent monkey. How dare he come and talks to me like that? That's when Vibhishana comes. And this is what I said to you earlier. Vibhishana dharma. Vibhishana says, look, it is adharmic for us to kill a messenger. He very clearly said he is Rama's messenger. So you cannot kill a messenger. It is adharmic and it's not good for you, brother. So Vibhishana said that, and that became that conversation between Vibhishana and Ravana became Vibhishana dharma mantraha, like that. So killing a messenger is considered as an act of cowardice, rather. And, in those days, they never used to kill the messengers. They set them free. They said, okay, take this message back. Okay, so Ravana says, okay, since you put it that way, I'm not going to kill him. But what is the most, you show off with your tail, right? And your tail, of course, is very important for your survival. So he told all his soldiers, set the tail on fire. Set the tail on fire. And then let's watch the fun. So in the meantime, when all this is happening and Ravana's sentencing Hanuman's tail to be set on fire, news has reached Sita to Trijata. Trijata, although she was the she was the leader of the Asuras, she was actually very nice to Sita. So she always passes her news and all of that. So she said, look, a monkey has come and has caused some damage, and the king is sentencing him, putting his tail to fire. So Sita prays to Agni Deva and says, do not hurt Hanuman, who's a gentle soul and who's come here on the bidding of Rama. Now the lesson, here is, when you say a true prayer that is directed for someone else's complete benefit of someone else, that prayer will work far more powerfully than when you pray for yourself. That's why Swami says, Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. If everybody is praying for everybody else, then everybody will be well, right? There's no problem. People know, even in prayer, they're selfish. Oh, I must get a good job. I must get a high salary. I must buy this car. My daughter must get a good son. My son must get a good daughter. All this. Me. I, my. In the end, die. Right? So, she prays. She says to, Agni Deva, be gentle with my furry friend. Of course, once they set the tail on fire, Hanuman, and they throw him outside so that he can, his tail will catch fire and he will catch fire, and hopefully, he will have lots of problems, right? But Hanuman grew enormously and he started flying everywhere with his tail going left and right and left and right. So the Rakshasas didn't know what to do. They were completely flabbergasted, right? They didn't know what to do. This is what I said to you in the first week, Lanka Dahanam, setting Lanka on fire. So he set. And then he came to the seashores. He dipped his burning tail into the water, extinguished the fire. He again, he prayed in the direction of Mother Sita and says, bless me before I fly back to Rama. And then he took the flight. Boom. And he was shouting, he was like roaring away before he landed. And the Vanaras were jumping in joy. They were absolutely delighted, giving Hanuman a warm welcome. Hanuman straight went to Rama, told him everything that has happened, right? And of course gives Rama the Chudamani that Sita gave. Of course, they were all completely jubilant, overjoyed, And Rama just kept looking at the Sita's Chudamani, and he can't believe that finally she's been found, and it's not long before they get back together. And the Vanaras decide, okay, what's the problem now? See, Hanuman could fly, but we don't have the flight power, right? So they all ask Rama, they ask Sugriva what to do. They ask Jambavan, and Rama says, come here, Nala and Nila. Remember in the introduction, I told you who Nala and who Nila was, right? One was Agni, the other was Vishwakarma, celestial architect. So Rama says to Nala and Nila, construct a bridge over the ocean so that we can walk across the bridge and, reach the island of Lanka. So this, these floating stones, again, I will start with this when I do Yuddha Kanda. I'll talk about the building of the bridge. Although Sundara Kanda, from hearing me for the last hour and 15 minutes or so, you might think that it sounds like a mere narrative, right? No, there's a lot of hidden significance, hidden messages behind the entire Kanda, behind the story, right? 68 chapters and more than 3,000 verses. It's a reflection. Hanuman's flight and Hanuman's, adventures, it's like the reflection of an awakened spiritual seeker in search of divinity within him. Hanuman portrays the awakened spiritual seeker. That is why he's Chiranjeevi. Until today, one post that is very famous, you can see him, is the meditative pose, right? And I've had sight of this, in my travels in Kailash. Crossing the ocean is crossing the ocean of samsara, ocean of life, that is cycle of birth and death, right? In this, crossing the ocean of samsara, ocean of life and death, birth and death, punar janma, punar marana, like that, punarpi janam, punarpi maranam, like that, right? Going back and forth. You'll have lots of tests of desire, tests of strength, tests of perseverance, tests of devotion, all of that, right? Obstacles, every spiritual seeker will face obstacles. Who hasn't? Even the greatest of rishis, even the Trimurtis themselves are continuously facing challenges so that they remain on track. The various mansions, the beauty, the opulence, the grandeur, all these are attractions. Maya, illusion, the power of Maya. So Hanuman going, seeing all these and still not being affected or attached to them shows immense control of sense. That's the lesson for us. The various koshas, starting from food, Annamaya kosha, Manonmaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, Anandamaya kosha, and power your koshas, right? And of course, Hanuman finding Mother Sita, when perseverance and focus is completely on track, you will definitely find what you're looking for, 100%, right? So next week, when I talk to you, remind me, I'll ask Brother G to send me a message so that I don't forget to tell you about the orange or red color and the significance of the bell, right? I won't forget because I won't forget, right? So the Sundara Kanda actually is considered to be the powerhouse of Ramayana, powerhouse, right? Whoever reads or listens to it with total Shraddha and Bhakti, faith and devotion, will be devoid of physical ailments, worries, poverty, lack of strength, lack of luster, all this. It rejuvenates you. The more you hear, the more you listen. As I said to you earlier, Bhala Buddhi Vidya Dehu Mohi, right? It will eradicate all your problems and show you only one thing, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So it's lots of benefits though, you know. By reading, you can also, by reading or even listening, right? If you can't read the true version or the Sanskrit or Hindi or whatever, just listen to it. The benefits of Sundara Kandam is described by Lord Shiva in Shiva Purana. I mean, who wants to argue with that, right? It can ward off dangers. That is why you find that, you know, before people set off on long journeys, they always pray to Hanuman. You know, before they start something, they always pray to Hanuman, because this is Hanuman. He's just like Ganesha, right? And that's why I may have said to this before, right? But I'm sure I have. The two people who are not affected by the Navagrahas, one is Ganesha, the other is Hanuman. So praying to them is a direct message that, you know, problems cannot harm you continuously, because Ganesha and Hanuman, as long as they are there, everybody else is bound by the karmic consequences of the grahas, except Ganesha, Jnana Kadavul, and of course Hanuman, right? So ward off dangers, it can cure serious or chronic diseases, complete Shraddha and faith, that must be there continuously, right? Of course, it can give you progeny, it can give you wealth, it can give you prosperity, it can look after your welfare, it can fulfill the wishes. Whatever you take Sankalpa and you read Hanuman Chalisa. Reading, listening, and understanding, right? Not just repeating, right? I go to some places where they have prayers sometimes, they just repeat so fast 11 times. I'm thinking, better say it once properly than just mechanically repeating it 11 times. What's the purpose? Are you somebody going to come and give you a gift, a present, an award, a reward, recognition, just because you've said it 11 times? So say it once, but say it well. Every word is heard, every meaning is understood, appreciated, and reflected upon. Right? Basically, it is a mantra. Just like Rama Nama Taraka Mantraha, Hanuman Chalisa is the Taraka Mantra for all your problems to clear away, so that, you know, you become completely problem-free. Anjaneya Veera Hanumanta Sura, Anjaneya Veera Hanumanta Sura, Anjaneya Veera Hanumanta Sura, Vayu Kumara Vanara Veera, Jai 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 Ram, Jai 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 Sita Ram, Jai 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 Ram, Jai 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 Sita Ram, Jai 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 Ram, Jai 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 Sita Ram, Jai 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 Ram, Jai 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 Sita Ram, Jai Anjaneya Swami Ki Jai. Anyada Sharanam Nasti Tumeva Sharanam Mama Tasmat Karunya Bhavena Raksharaksha Anjaneya. Thank you. Sai Ram.